Friends, I welcome you once again to the Puzzle Family Affairs program brought to you by the Africa Connect Television and Radio Online. And as always, my name is Tony Hirschmart. I'm the presenter and anchor person. As we journey into the year 2015, I want to bring to you a topic I have called the challenges of overfamiliarity. Listen, the issue of overfamiliarity is tearing families apart, and honestly would want you to pay very close attention to this broadcast as you listen. And thank you for being part of it. Enjoy it. The challenges of overfamiliarity in a relationship, in a marriage, in a family. My dear listeners, have you noticed that you have become overfamiliar with your spouse or your relationship after several months or years in that marriage? It's a question. It is a danger sign and needs an immediate attention. One that says it is now or never. I don't know if you got me correctly. I am saying, have you become so overfamiliar with your spouse? If you have noticed it after several months that you are married, or after some years that you are married, and you no longer do the things that brought both of you together, it simply means that the overfamiliarity has brought contempt in the relationship. It's as simple as that. And I say it is a danger sign in that relationship, and an immediate attention ought to be paid to it, and the decision taken quickly. If that is not addressed as a matter of urgency, it could be devastating for such a relationship. Hear me. Look, listeners, getting overfamiliar is a state in a marriage that creates deep dissatisfaction and reconsiderations in what must have led to the decision of coming together in the first place. When you become so overfamiliar with your spouse, at some point or the other, one party will begin to notice that something is getting wrong in the relationship. And when it gets to that point, when one party is beginning to notice that this woman, shortly before we got married or shortly after we got married, she used to do so thing this way. She used to do so thing at this time. Or he was doing so thing. He was doing so that. But now it is no longer like that. When it gets to that point, the party that have taken notice of the sudden twist in the attitude, in the manner and way the other party is doing things, will begin to ask himself or herself questions. Questions like, was this the right decision in the first place? Because ultimately, the reason for you coming together, the reason for you getting into that relationship is beginning to wear out. You are no longer seeing it. And you begin to imagine, did I see correctly in the first place? What I'm seeing, was it what I saw that convinced me to get into this marriage? Yes, you saw clearly when you saw what you saw. But you see, one funny thing in marriage is that there are things you see when you are dating, when you are courting, when you are planning to say I do, when you are planning to say till death do us part. That looks very clear to you then. When you are inside the marriage, it begins to appear like a mirage. Mirage, what do I mean? When you see something, it's like 2 kilometers away. And when you journey to 2 kilometers, it's further 2 kilometers away, and you never get to the end of what you see in front of you. So each time you look, like what they say in abracadabra, they say, the more you look, the less you see. That's what it looks like when finally you are in marriage. And so when you begin to look more and see less, certainly overfamiliarity has crept in into the marriage and needs an urgent and immediate attention. You know as much as I do that it is human nature to want to be valued. Everybody wants to be valued. Everybody wants to be appreciated. Everyone who is in a relationship wants to be nurtured in that relationship. And when you think about it, these are the essential and fundamental qualities that keep couples bonded together forever or for a very long time. These are the essence of romance that we all wish for and long for in marriage. But the reality in our today's marriage is the contrast. When a couple lacks this positive aspect of the relationship suffers. And the partners begin to move separately. Everybody for himself, God for all of us. And then their eyes are suddenly opened to what should have been and what not ought to have been in the marriage. Things you didn't see when you were blindly in love. Things you didn't see when you were anxious for that ring to be plugged into your finger. Things you didn't see when everybody was telling you, are you sure? Have you thought about it? Do you think this is the right man? Do you think this is the right woman? Things you refused to see then, things you were blinded from seeing at that time. Suddenly, your eyes are opened to them. This danger could wreck the marriage faster than anyone could ever have imagined. It is dangerous. When the situation gets to this point, it once again reminds us that marriage requires a very solid foundation. Marriage requires a very solid foundation. Although in marriage there is no guarantee that the person you think you have thoroughly studied, you have thoroughly courted over a period of time is going to make a successful wife for you, is going to make a successful husband for you. There is no guarantee. Especially on the side of women. It is more difficult dealing with women, handling women in marriage, because they are the ones that are quick to get over familiar in a marriage relationship. And so the challenge we have to go through or face with our women are enormous. That's why somebody put it this way, that when God created everything creatable, he rested. But from the day he created woman, the way woman was introduced into the picture of creation, neither God nor man or woman has rested ever since. Women, do not crucify me. I am not the author of that statement. But come to think of it, a man will be solidly at peace until the day he gets married. Partly because the women, they have the way they do their own things, and they have the way they want to be treated, and all of that. And for men that are not patient enough to understand the women very, very well, and to understand, what it takes to be romantic and what it takes, to nurture a woman in a relationship and all that, the woman end up being disgruntled quicker than even the man. The woman end up being dissatisfied in a relationship quicker than the man. And as a result, if you're not capable to handle the pressure women bring into the home and all that, you begin to pull and push. You begin to fight and settle tomorrow, going to one family or the other to judge matter, who is wrong, who is right, etc., etc.
And that's why probably somebody said that since the day God created woman, that God has not rested, man has not rested, and the women have not rested. Isn't that interesting? If I am you, a woman listening this evening, I will challenge myself to say, okay, since they say since the day God created the day God created woman, God has not rested, men have not rested, neither the women. I will challenge myself to decide not to be an issue in the home anymore, and decide to be a solution. Anyway, like I said, when the situation gets to this point, and at that point, once again, I said, it reminds us that we need to base our marriages on solid foundation. One that will be strong and reliable. But then, how strong the concrete you set up the foundation in your own relationship will determine how reliable or otherwise the foundation is going to be. Ultimately, what we are saying here is that every relationship, every marriage for that matter, will get to a point where you begin to take yourselves for granted. You take your wife for granted. You take your husband for granted. You take the entire relationship for granted because you have become so over-familiar with yourselves. This is what we're discussing this evening. Now, how do we start getting over-familiar with our spouses in our relationship? How does it begin? How does it begin? How do you now stop doing the things that you were doing, the things you were noted for doing, which probably must have attracted you to the man, or probably may have attracted you to. So when you get to that point, you get confused. How do you get to that point? How do you get to that point? You must begin by understanding how your relationship got into that condition, becoming over-familiar. Like I have always said, before the wedding, or let me say during courtship, couples to make more effort to look good, show courtesy to the other person, be romantic, say all kinds of words, send all manner of gifts and all that. They do this to win each other's approval and willingness to get married, to become Mr. So-so-so, to become Mrs. So and so. But at some point, after the honeymoon period has ended, it is not uncommon, like I said, for people to start taking each other for granted from that point. One partner or the other may think that since they have made a lifelong commitment to love each other, that is enough. After all, we are married. Please, please. Change that mentality. There should be a shift in your mentality of basing the longevity, how long the marriage is going to last, or how long the relationship is going to last, simply because you are married, you are married. Let me warn you, my dear listeners, slowly over time, the extra romantic things that you do, the way you express appreciation to your spouse, the thoughts, and even some sense of fun and adventure, they start falling by the wayside. And right or wrong, this in turn affects the quality of the intimacy in the relationship and the satisfaction level. And so, over-familiarity sets in. I mean, when things begin to happen that are not supposed to be happening in a relationship, some spouse, they just accept the fact that, something that happens at a time goes by in a marriage. They figure that this is normal, that there is nothing they can do about it, and that what's most important is that they have made a commitment to each other by getting married. They view the fact that their marriage as a strong, permanent bond that will keep them together My friends, if you have that belief, you are totally wrong. Totally and totally wrong. It is living your relationship in the open air, meaning that when the quake comes and when the wind blows, it blows the relationship apart.